Welcome back to BNFM. Today we've got a really exciting conversation lined up. Joining me are two leaders who play a huge role in shaping the sales side of our organization. Todd Soucie, president of Artesian, and Cameron Veach, president of Office H2O. Today we'll be talking about their backgrounds, how sales works at Bottleless Nation, Sales University, and what the future looks like as we come together under one name and one Bottleless Nation. So let's get started by getting to know you both a little bit better. So my first question for both of you is, what was your path into sales and leadership, and what brought you here?
Cam, you want to roll?
Todd, I'll let you jump.
Okay. In college, I initially thought that I wanted to write copy for an ad agency, and my internship was I'm old, so there were Yellow Page books still around. I sold Yellow Page space in the back of a campus telephone book, and I
So the
did
behind
not
the times, Todd, isn't too far off then.
watch it, Kylie.
We need a Yellow Pages. We need a Yellow Pages.
we could do a Yellow Pages. I
That's a
would
good one.
have a little bit of knowledge about that. My internship was advertising sales. I did not have a meeting, and they had all of their interviews lined up, and I waited in between with my $40 blue blazer on, and walked into the room and introduced myself to the guy that was running the meetings. I'll never forget his name. His name was Mike Pugsley, and the company was University Directories, and told him why he needed to give me an interview. He gave me an interview, and he made me the selling manager of a team of 4, and they had 74 teams. And I'll never forget, I was 20 years old, and it took me about 30 minutes to walk through my first door. And the next minute, it took me about 25 minutes to walk through my first door. And at the end of the first day, I quickly realized that I had about 60 seconds to warm up to somebody, and so they didn't kick me out the door. I figured that out really quickly, and started to realize our team was highly successful. We ended up number 4 out of 70 teams across the country. And I quickly realized that Mike Pugsley never gave me a call because our team was like 156% of quota. And so I didn't have to worry about any micromanagement. We were making money, having fun. And I realized that there was no way I was going to go sit in a studio and write copy for ads. I wanted to go out and meet people. That's my path into sales. It was almost by accident.
I love it. I love it. Cam, what about you?
Well, mine kind of quickly jumps into meeting Todd, actually. So being a Veach, growing up, I didn't really have a whole lot of options outside of, you're probably going to sell in some way, shape, or form. We're probably going to do something together. And this is always a conversation since I was in middle school. But basically, whenever I went to Hanover College, which 2 Hanover College grads. When I went to Hanover College and I started taking communication courses, I was quickly drawn to visual communications. And I actually kind of convinced myself freshman and sophomore year that I wanted to do something behind a camera, or either in front of or behind a camera. I love the editing part of it. I also love being kind of like the anchor, for instance. But using communications in those classes, I was able to see how I looked behind a camera, and then quickly realized, oh, there's a lot of little quirks that I do or say, or things that I do with my face that are kind of off-putting. I need to change those. And so I think it made me a better communicator. But in that process, sophomore year to junior year, I took an internship and actually interned with a company that Todd was at previously, One Source Water, where I did sales for a summer and immediately fell in love with it. Mostly was doing it because, Rick Veach, my dad, was like, hey, you should do this. You should try it out. And initially I was like, yeah, I'll do it to make you happy, but there's no way I'm going to actually love this. And then similar to you, Todd, it took me like no time at all to realize, oh, this is the easiest thing in the world. Not only that, it's very fun. So it just kind of came natural, because you get to go meet people, learn about businesses, and it's kind of you versus yourself. So you're always kind of like honing how can I better myself and my pitch. And so after that, it was game over. So I knew that I wanted to be in sales in some way, shape, or form, which we started Office H2O while I was still in college. So shortly after that, Austin started Office H2O, and then I joined him over the summers, even took our spring term classes I used as a credit through our business scholars program to get another month of work in. So when I could have been partying more for a full month where we just had one class, I was selling. And out of college, the rest is history.
I think so. I think that the choice of sales. Listen, if you have a good work ethic, one of the other draws for me was that I realized that I was not going to get paid the same amount as somebody else that was sitting beside me that didn't have the work ethic or the drive. And that was the hook that sunk deep for me. I knew I would always outwork 90% of the people around me, and so I knew that I could determine how much money I made.
Yeah,
That was a big piece.
And I learned early on that with sales, it is truly a whatever you put in, you get out. And so having that experience and that epiphany in college really ruined the rest of college for me, because I realized I know what I want to do, and I'm no longer getting paid for working hard, and that sucks. And so
Yeah.
it was a quick epiphany for me. It's like, oh wow, there's especially in sales, you get what you put in, and you start to realize, being in the real world just for that summer, I started to realize not a lot of people instinctually want to work very hard, just kind of naturally. We just want to kind of get by. But if you are the sales rep who wants to put in that extra effort, it goes a long way. So it hooked me quick. And Todd was there for the training, and it's just kismet that we're sitting here now.
That's right.
That kind of leads me into the next question I was going to ask you, and maybe this is some of what you've already talked about, or maybe it's something else, but I feel like you guys liked sales and you were good at it, and that also helps you like things, right? When you like are successful. And Todd's like, yeah, I mean, I was killing it. Of course, like I never heard from my boss. We were doing amazing. Do you think that's something that came naturally to you? And if you do feel that way, what kind of skill sets and just things were you good at that made you natural in the sales world?
Todd, do you want it?
Sure. Listen, I'm not sure that I believe that many people are instinctually just natural. I think you have certain. I think everybody has certain gifts.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's with anything. With anything in life, you need to put the time in. You need to put the repetition in. You need to be an ongoing student, right? Surround yourself with people that are successful at the craft that you want to be better at. Understand that you need to ask lots of questions and try and apply those skills or those traits that somebody else is doing as quickly as possible. That's my take on it.
Yeah. What do you think, Cam?
No, I would agree. I mean, for me, naturally, I'm good at having a conversation, but I noticed early on that it was easier to be better at sales if I was just genuine. So people can usually read that, and that was, I think, the most interesting part of the sales process for me, and what I learned early on, and actually made it part of my senior thesis, was just kind of like the social back and forth that you go through to basically prove that you could be trustworthy enough as a person. And you have to really get somebody to not only like you, but trust you in a very short amount of time. And that was just kind of intoxicating for me because I'm like, I got to make this person love me. Here we go. Like it's a fun challenge, and everybody's different.
That lines right up with what I figured out in the first week of selling those ads. I had 60 seconds to get somebody to not kick me out the door. And today in university, all the way back to roughly 2007 when we started university, there's a piece of the training that we talk about, and we call it creating a 5-year relationship in 5 minutes. When people truly believe that they can trust you and believe that they like you as a person, their guard comes down, and they're willing to support your ideas. They're willing to share, and we want people to trust us so that they will share their thoughts and their ideas with us. That's how we get down to figuring out some potential pain that we can solve. And when we can solve pain with our products and be able to show somebody that, there's a benefit to that, and people latch onto that.
Yeah. And now you guys have gone from not only, being successful at sales yourself, but now leading others to then be successful on their own. And what's the most exciting part about that transition from not just selling, but teaching other people how to sell?
Cam?
For me, and I got my first taste of managing about 4 or 5 years ago. And initially I was always kind of like, I just want to sell. I don't think I would like to be a teacher in any way, shape, or form. And I kind of always initially wanted to be just that person who gets assigned to go close the big deals or chase the big accounts, because that was fun for me. And then once I started managing my first small team that grew to be a much larger team, the first couple people that I was in charge of managing, it was like it had gotten to that point for sales for me that it was still fun and the wins were big, but nothing was a bigger win for me than whenever somebody that I was coaching got a win. For me, I learned early on, like, oh, that really feels good to help somebody succeed. And so that grew over time to larger team. As we were growing Office H2O initially, as Austin was taking on more of an operations side, I was taking on a lot of the sales managing and the vice president of sales, what I ended up becoming, which I was overseeing multiple markets while also selling. And it got up to a point where I really liked the managing side way more than going out and selling. That being said, I still miss being out in the field every day. Being out in the field is a lot of fun, but nothing's better than a rep calling or a manager calling going, you'll never guess what just happened. And you're like, I was a part of that in some way, shape, or form throughout the process, and I was able to help. That feels good.
I love it. And Todd, one thing I want to ask you is, you've been a part of different types of like water companies over the years, right? Like you've been through kind of, I don't know, the trajectory has changed, right? You've worked for different people, done different things. Where do you think where the culture is now at Bottleless Nation? What do you think sets us apart when it comes to sales, and maybe just our culture in general, but specifically with the team that you guys lead? What do you think makes us different?
Listen, I think I've been doing this since 2005. I mean, the little company that we started out with Rick. I mean, it was Pure Water Technologies of Indiana. There were 4 or 5 of us, right? And as that business evolved and grew, listen, we were young. Uh, Cam was a toddler, right? That's, I mean, at the end of the day, things were different back then. We had a lot of learning to do. I'm not sure, full transparency, that I gave culture a whole lot of thought in my 30s. Today, I guard culture with my life. I think that I think that if we continue to keep a focus on bringing in like-minded people that have, servant leadership, as we talk about, the core foundation of servant leadership is treat your team members the way you want to be treated, right? If we live by those principles and bring people onto our teams, whether it's sales, whether it's service, whether it's the admin team, whether it's the marketing team, if we bring people in that are like-minded, I think that those values can do nothing but make Bottleless Nation a really fun place for people to work that want to be competitive, and I think that can do nothing but exude out into the prospects that we hunt and the customers that we serve.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Cam? I didn't know if you looked like you had something. No.
Yeah, it's great. Loved it.
I like it. And one of the pillars you were talking about, are there other ones, like you were talking about servant leadership? Are there other kind of attributes that you're looking when you guys are building a team? And, what sticks out to you most and what makes someone successful when they get started on the sales team?
Yeah. I mean, our biggest thing is to just look for people who like-minded, like the team atmosphere, and that we can see replacing us, because that's what a lot of this is, especially as we're growing. The number one priority is hiring people who have that drive, but not only the drive and the organization skills that could potentially become that next step up. Especially as we're looking to go from market to market, that's always our main priority is. And it's fun to have interviews with people, and looking back on interviews for people who are now regional managers or just sales trainers or anything like that, in the process of interviewing them, you could tell in that moment they've got something. They've got something that could be really special. And it's cool to look back on those interviews now, especially while Todd and I are having interviews weekly. It's cool to look out for those people who have that, that twinkle in their eye, and you're going, ooh, this could be somebody that 2 years from now could be a really big part of our organization and is just now starting. Especially when, Todd, I'm sure you always talk about it in terms of the bell curve in our industry. We're really at the very beginning of it. So yeah, that's what's really exciting, especially when you're recruiting and hiring people for sales, is talking about that early on so that people know that, oh, this isn't just a job. This could be a legitimate career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think, some of the, we're fortunate in the fact that we have 19 years worth of data to look back on. We're also fortunate enough to have been taught or come up through an industry. As an example, I came up through the office equipment business, copiers, printers, fax machines. Some people that are listening to this, that are going to listen to this podcast, won't even remember what a fax machine is, right? My kids certainly don't know what a fax machine is. We were fortunate enough to have some mentors that taught us a very good activity model and a sales process. And I think that when Cam and I are doing final interviews, I think some of the most important things one of the most important things that I try and stress to somebody is that we're looking for people, one, culture fit, right? That's got to be there. We can have high performers. We can have high performers that are cancerous in an environment, and when that's left unchecked, it can tear down an entire office. So culture is important. The second piece is that we need people that are willing to embrace this proven process that we have. This process that we know, if you do X, if you follow this process and apply this type of activity to it with regularity, we know what the outcome's going to be. So some of the most important things are people that are comfortable in their own skin, good at creating relationships, but also being able to take a big bite of this process and be willing to go out and execute on it, and not think that they have a totally different path to make this work. Hopefully that makes a little sense.
Like not recreating the wheel, basically.
Yeah,
Like you're not trying
sure.
you have a proven, I mean, and it's a numbers game. And I imagine a lot of it is too, where, you have to, if you only go out and talk to one person a day, you're probably not going to be very successful in making the sales goals that you have to make. So, and honestly, the whole time you're thinking about this, and maybe this is coming from me being biased, like as an athlete, but like all I can think about is sports. Like you're talking about, you can have the most, athletic, like all-star person, but if they have a terrible attitude, they're not really that great for the team, or
Yeah.
like, I don't know, just the idea of competition and that, like, I don't know, gets my juices going. I just like, it makes me excited to think like, oh, okay, like I could hit these goals and I could do, that's kind of what it makes me think of.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. There's a lot of metrics at play, and we provide the handbook, and it's all about. I mean, it's really effort from there, a numbers game, and we provide a scoreboard daily for a reason. We want those competitive juices always flowing, and it's even more fun whenever somebody's really competitive and successful to be able to constantly put their old numbers back in front of them to say, beat yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can beat people, not beat yourself. So, that's kind of the lifeblood, honestly, of the sales team. And we've got a lot of sales events that we do. We've got a trip that we do if you hit your sales goals for the year. And those sales trips are usually just a lot of shit talking. It's a lot of sales reps who are talking about who's the best and who could sell better, and then it's always at the beginning of the year, so it's fun to see all right, well, we'll see who wins this year. So that is one thing. Whenever I'm interviewing and I find out that they were a high competitive collegiate athlete, sales reps don't have to have that background, but if there is that background, it is fun to capitalize on that and create analogies that they can relate to. So
yeah,
sure. You talked about having a competitive nature is definitely an instrumental piece to being successful on the sales side of the world. Kylie, when you were talking, you just talked a second ago about the juices flowing and the competition. When you're in that big game and you lose, right? How'd that make you feel?
Oh, I wanted it even worse the next time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I think that most people like to win. I think that people that have that empty rotting gut feeling when they lose, I think have a different drive, because they do not want to feel like that again. And so they will jump in, figure out what they did wrong, and work to apply that so they don't have to feel like that again. I think that takes people to a new level.
Definitely. And one of the things that you guys have implemented, and you talked about how the landscape has changed, and one of the things you weren't thinking about in your 30s was culture. And I think as the company grows and evolves, one of the things that you guys have added is Sales University. Where did that come from? Because that's not something we've always had. Where did that come from? And could you tell everyone a little bit about it, maybe who hasn't been, through Sales University, since we have a lot of people who listen to this that aren't necessarily in the, on the sales team?
Well, I'll let Todd speak to that, because he's been a huge part of, being an architect for that process. So,
okay.
And you, Todd, you really you've overseen university for a while now. And I know that's kind of it's a lot of your passion. So
Let's see, 2005, I found myself in our first 90 days, once again, Pure Water Technology of Indiana. I found myself with a paper brochure, and every time I walked into a prospect, I called this thing something different. It was a point of use unit. It was a water cooler. It was it was that. My 4-year-old at the time called it a water robot. And I found myself calling it something different every time I walk in. And so I stand at my desk one day with this paper brochure and I say, so how do you explain this to a 12-year-old so that they could easily understand it? And I start writing some information down. I called Rick after about 2 or 3 days, and I'm like, I am tired of calling this something different. Here's what I'm kind of thinking, and got going. And I start telling him how I'm describing this. I didn't even know what I was on to. And about halfway through, he said, stop. He said, I want you to write all of that down. That's going to be our talk track that we're going to train. That's how it came about. I didn't know what to call this thing. And I started writing something down for myself, and Rick had the vision to go, write that down. This is how we're going to help train salespeople. So it kind of got started with that. And then we had lots of people in the early days that took the training role, and it's evolved. It's evolved almost on a yearly basis. Something's tweaked or changed. The core principles of our activity model and the sales process itself are roughly the same, except for about that 4-year period of COVID where we turned some things on its head.
Mhm.
Uh, but the neat thing about whether it was back in the one source water days where we went to 25 offices and roughly 35,000 devices on the ground, or today as these combined organizations with what do we have about we have 24 offices,
We're
roughly
approaching. Oh, say
33,000 coolers.
I was gonna say I just made a graphic for some new milestones we're hitting. So I think we're at 20 and 16. Is that
There you
about
go.
We're
right?
at 36,000
36.
combined.
Yeah.
Okay. So as the university, the activity model and the sales process being trained to people that we find are good allows us that's duplicatable and allows us to scale. Whether it was back in the one source days or today with these two organizations that are soon to be Bottleless Nation, um, there's nobody else around that can scale at the speed in which we can.
hmm And for those who don't know, what does the scaling looked like? Just to give kind of an overview of the past, 5, 6, 7 years.
Well, most recently, if you look back, Cam, you can elaborate on Office H2O's journey, but in at the beginning of 2020 with Artesian Water, we opened up 5 offices right through the middle of COVID, while
Wow.
we were changing belly to belly, face to face selling to figuring out how we could sit on one of these devices and share information with somebody, or standing across a parking lot 25 feet away from somebody shouting at them, trying to explain our product, right, with a mask over our face, right? So the principles and the core foundation of that of this training, if we stay true to that, everybody, whether they're in Phoenix, whether they're in Milwaukee, or whether they're in one of the new markets that we're going to open up next year, the reality is that everybody should be being held to the same standards and being trained the exact same way. And that allows for scenarios when Cam or I need to get involved. We don't have to guess about what should be happening. We know
hmm
exactly what it is, so that we can hold somebody accountable if it's not happening, or pat somebody on the back for doing a nice job. If somebody wants to grow with us and take that next role, they need to be able to prove that they can go out and execute on this process. And then they also need to prove that they can guard it, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And you're currently in Sales University. That's where you were today, correct?
Correct.
Yes. And so can you walk through, let's say someone has, they've obviously don't know what Sales University is. Can you kind of walk us through what that looks like and how long is Sales University? Just kind of the basics for those of us who don't know.
Sure. So Sales University this year it evolved to an extra half day. So people travel in on a Monday, and university is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Wraps up around 1:30, 2 o'clock on Friday, and then everybody's either back in their car or on a plane back home. The university really, there's a lot of information in a 4-day period, right?
Yeah.
We provide a lot of in what we call pre university, where we are providing them with information that they need to learn prior to coming, and that includes the talk track at the bottled water cooler or the talk track at the filter cooler, which is our way to uh, highlight pain that a prospect either knows they have or might not know they have. And then this script allows us then to show the features of the product and how those features can eliminate that pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a prospect is not going to buy features, they're going to buy pain, or they're going to buy benefit. I like to say, one of the lines I use in university might be a little graphic, but I like to say, when we're talking about this, I like to say, we want to find the wound. We want to put our fingers in both sides of it and pry it apart a little bit, dump a little salt in it, and then we want to be the person or the company that has the saline solution and the gauze bandage to make it better, right? That's part of what this process is about. So it really, university, without getting too long-winded, I could talk about university for an hour. University talks first and foremost about the activity that's required and helps people understand uh, the level of speed in which they need to move, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we go into the sales process and how adding that activity to the sales process will provide an outcome that's good for the organization and good for their earnings.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And with adding in Sales University, do you feel like there was some just like gaps that it filled, before you were like, oh, we're always having to answer this, or we're always trying to solve this problem? Like what kind of gaps did it fill or problems did it solve for you guys as far as, leading other salespeople?
I mean, there were a lot of gaps. There still are things that we catch. And what's really nice is that you can use Sales University to mend that right off the rip. So you don't see those issues any longer. So look, when it comes to our sales cycle, there's a lot of broad strokes that we cover during university, and we try to hone in on the little nuggets that make it so that way the process of sales is seamless and that there are the least amount of things that can go wrong once they are in the field. But it's like anything. It's the world, everything that we're coming across, everything's kind of changing little by little, day by day. And so, what's been nice about that Sales University is you can have a lot of people who come in with no bad habits and don't know the way that we used to do something, and they only know the new way. And then sometimes the harder thing could be teaching the guy who's been selling for 10 years what he's supposed to say now instead of what he was saying before. Mm-hmm. So that's what's been great about just seeing Sales University. And I've been a part of it, and I'm helping with, just some of the information that comes out of it. Not nearly as much as Todd does, but what's been really cool is to see just how quickly we can implement it. Because it's really a sales university hosted by salespeople for salespeople, as opposed to I've heard from other reps who have had sales universities that were led by primarily like HR related people or people who weren't in sales, and it wasn't very motivating. And once they got to the real world, there were no good examples that they experienced in university. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That's what's been cool about these past couple of years is we've fine-tuned it, is just to see how malleable it is.
I think that, we were talking about the evolution of the university, and our big evolution this year through our planning sessions this last year and talking about university. Cam mentioned that a whole when people come out of university is the appointment setting piece, right? And he's right. And I think sometimes you can get so deep into the forest you can't see the trees. And and he brought that up, and it's one of the things that we constantly listen. Everything good on the sales side of the world starts with an appointment. And if you don't have an appointment, I don't care how good you are with these talk tracks or how good you are with a warm-up sheet uncovering pain. You can't do it. You can't do it enough to have a positive outcome. And so it was part of adding a little extra time to university. Over the last three sessions, we started doing live role plays where Anna Wolski from our training side is getting into Zoom info and grabbing a list of 100 or so customers out of these reps' individual territories that are 15 employees or less. So traditionally, a lot of people that we're probably not calling on much anyways, hopefully. And doing live phone calls during university. We've got about a total of about 3 hours of that on 2 different days that is happening, and we're helping and critiquing that in an effort to try and give them a little more experience and a little more feedback going out into the field so that they can be a little more effective where that's concerned. That's a change that just happened over the last 4 months.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But you're giving them an opportunity to, actually give it a try first and not, just
not be afraid to fail, because you're in a room full of people who are failing. And it's one of those where you have to get comfortable with the fact that you can, at any point in time, put down the phone, pick it back up again. And the phone call portion of what we do is such an important one that throughout history, we've always just kind of been like, you'll get better on the phones, you'll figure it out. But then we realized early on, crap, if they can't get an appointment on the phone, there's not much we can do. So that's been a cool thing, which, Todd, you guys kind of used to do, and then it worked so well you stopped doing it in a previous university. Yeah. I mean, it's sometimes it's that. So
And as we look, and this is something that's happening obviously across the board, we're taking, Office H2O and Artesian, and we're coming into one Bottleless Nation. This has been happening behind the scenes, maybe not on the customer facing side, but behind the scenes, we've been doing some integrating for sure. Is there any changes we have to look forward to in the sales team? Is there anything in the future, just as far as, as we become one, will there be any changes, or will it kind of have those changes already happened for you guys?
Cam?
How do you want it? Well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of things moving in the background, but in terms of changes for the reps, not really. The main change that we're implementing right now is just combining the CRM. So then that way we can all, the flow of our relationships is gonna be so much better moving forward. So then that way, if somebody has a corporate office in Chicago that wants to sign for multiple facilities in Phoenix, Texas, and all these other locations that we have, it's as seamless as doing everything in one program. Whereas right now there's a lot happening behind the scenes and making sure it seems seamless to the reps, but it's really not on our end. It's really a lot of back and forth.
That's right.
But that's some of the exciting stuff that we've got going on in the background. So for that reason, and that one reason alone, on top of several others, for that reason alone, I'm very excited about coming together and having these behind the scenes processes finally morph together.
Yeah.
Anything I'm
Definitely.
leaving out, Todd, outside of the CRM? I mean, that's the big one.
No, I think that's the big thing. I think some of our more highly successful salespeople do a really nice job looking to see what other team members are putting in the field on trial, what they've just closed, etc. And having that CRM together is going to give them a bigger list of companies that are being closed or going to trial. Going to allow them to see so that they can get after something a little quicker.
Yeah.
I would totally agree with what you're saying, Cam.
And it's already done an amazing job of just the concept of us coming together has already opened up a lot of people's eyes to, this is going to be a continuously growing thing, and I can really grow with this company or go to the next place that the company needs me. So there's already been some cool conversations this year as people are starting to visualize as this comes together. If you're a technician or a sales rep in Chicago and you really want to move to Salt Lake City, there's an option as we're continuing to grow, right? So that's what has also been really cool is it's been cool to see people kind of take the blinders off and go, oh, this is like a really, really cool big thing that I get to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's maybe not as obvious as it seems, but we were more regional, and obviously Artesian is a little bit more spread out than Office H2O is. But when you start to think about actually
a little bit more,
a lot bit more, yeah. When you start to think about it, though, instead of like these little hubs and as like a full like actual Bottleless Nation, you can start to see like those webs start spreading, which is really cool. So it even though they maybe like farther spread out, like they are very connected because, like you said, this company is also over here and is also over here. So it starts to connect those pieces more than, you might think. So is there any...
I think that, I make a little joke about a little more spread out. That was part of the original philosophy with Artesian was that, as Pure Water Partners being our finance arm, right, has dealers that use that same service all across the country. And so you've got X amount of dealers that that you can count on for good service in certain areas if you've got a bigger company that's in multiple areas. And the initial thought process with Artesian was that it would fill what we called white space. So you've got Office H2O primarily in this piece of the country here in the Midwest. And then we figured out where all of these better dealers were at. And we went and Artesian was implemented in other areas to try and fill up some space so that we could make ourselves appear to be bigger than what we really, then when I say we, Bottleless Nation, all organizations appear to be bigger than what they really were, right? Today, with as we continue to get prepared for this growth and become one company, it's not as much of a white space thing as it is let's fill in the holes.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's
and
exciting.
There was an advantage on the Office H2O side going into it, or that we've had for the past couple of years of being very close together and being able to share resources. And I know that Todd, you guys seeing that on the Artesian side, we're going, we need to connect, and we need to connect pretty quick. So then that way this becomes a little less spaced out, because there's a lot that goes into that. And I did want to mention, because you'd said something earlier, Kylie, about the process of how fast we can grow and what, at what pace can we go. And a lot of it comes down to, for us, is we can really move as fast as we want to, but it really comes down to getting the right people in place, like Todd had mentioned, because in all reality, once you get the right people in place, you're really kind of handing the reps or the regionals, basically each territory that's independent to themselves, you're basically handing them a water purification company that they have their own water purification company where we say, here's your territory, don't go outside these lines, you have all the resources in the world, go. And once that really starts to click with people, oh, I'm independent, this is all on me, then that's when they get in the right mindset of understanding that, oh, this is on us. We have to, we've got all the resources that we need through Bottleless Nation, but we really need to treat this like something that we want to grow with and keep going for a very long time. And once that finally clicks, we're like, okay, next spot. They get it now. They're well established. They've got a good service side and a good sales team that understands the process next.
Yeah.
So, but the culture piece that Todd was talking about is a huge part, because you got to be careful.
Yeah.
You got to grow at a manageable pace. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think that one of the things that, I've seen from the marketing side is just how much opportunity there is for those people in the different areas, because it is what you said from the very beginning, right? How much you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And how much you want to grow and how much money you want to make. Like, that's the one thing I think that's so unique about the sales side of the organization, because there is that like gamification of your job, which can either be maybe daunting or exciting depending on, how you look at it. So,
and no commission caps, which I love.
There you go.
There are some horror stories of the people who we hire who talk about commission caps and being too good at their previous role, which as a sales rep by heart, that just kills me hearing that they came from a place that had a cap on a commission or a bonus.
Yeah. Well, we are about out of time. I have one final question that I want to end with you guys, that I've been asking everyone. And Todd, we'll start with you. What advice? You have a lot of people, right? You work with a lot of salespeople, but all this information could be applicable really to anyone, I think, who wants to be successful. What advice would you give to your younger self? It doesn't have to be sales oriented, but what advice would you give to your younger self?
My younger self had some challenges. Listen, I think my younger self would have said, if I was talking to myself at 18 or 19 years old, I would have said, get started a little earlier, get serious a little bit earlier, right? That would have been what I would have given myself at 19 or 20 years old. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I knew what I wanted to do and didn't really wrap my arms around that until about 22 years old, right? So I would say that's the biggest thing, and I would say that when you decide that you want to go after something, whether it's being the best garbage man, whether it's being the best technician, whether it's being the best contracts manager, whether it's being the best salesperson, be a student, apply yourself, and go all in. The opportunities are there for you if you go out and latch onto them. Find some people that are successful and they are willing to help. And when you find somebody that's willing to help, use them and apply it as fast as you can.
I love it.
Yeah.
Cam, what about you?
Well, I am fairly young, so I don't.
But still, I'm sure there's things, when you started that you maybe think differently about now. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, especially I was forced, luckily, to grow up pretty quick, and I was definitely fine with that. But especially early on in the sales process in particular, and just in work life in general, I would have told my younger self to listen more than speaking, because I was notorious for, especially early on, talking, not truly listening. And then it wasn't until way too late that I learned that, whether it's a sales process, especially the managing side, it all comes down to listening and truly listening. and not everything that you hear needs to be responded to immediately. And so it's just that's kind of, I'm still learning. I'm still, I've still got plenty of time to continue to learn. But luckily, going into it, I knew that I was going to be learning a lot and always learning a lot. And I mean, heck, I've learned a lot from just today alone. So listen more. That's what I would say.
No, I love both of those. And Todd, what you were saying, it made me think of a quote. It's like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now, So it's like, okay, start earlier, but today's a good day as well. So I think that's awesome.
I agree.
Well, thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate you guys taking time. I know that you're busy with Sales University and all the people that you manage. So, but thank you for being here for BNFM, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thanks for letting us be a part of it.
Yes, thank you, Kylie. Appreciate you, host.
Yes.